Hello, my fellow seekers. Welcome to Into the Work, therapy for empaths, seekers, and the intuitively driven, where you have front row seats to therapy sessions and expert interviews that will help you define the important work that you're here to do. So I guess you actually have something better than front row seats. You practically have a seat on my couch. That's right, you will have unrestricted access to actual sessions with real people, exploring real life issues. You will continue to be inspired by powerful conversations with experts and healers that might just share exactly what it is that you need to hear to get unstuck. I am Michelle Pauverman. I am a recovering people pleaser and former anxiety-driven empath, turned now mostly grounded psychotherapist and intuitive coach. I have been helping people for almost 20 years manage their limiting beliefs and anxiety to finally stop the self-sabotage and step into their gifts. I created this podcast, Into the Work, to give you a place to learn more about yourself and give you actionable strategies to finally move those roadblocks holding you back so you can go for what you want. Above all else, my hope is that this podcast is a catalyst for your awakening. If you're listening, you've already taken a step towards getting off of autopilot, and our next steps together will be taken episode by episode, waking you up to the possibilities, the new ways of thinking and being, so that you can stretch into that next level of your story. The spark has already been lit, and my friend, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's light a fire.
Hello, I am so excited today to introduce you to Jennifer O'Neill. Jennifer is a Keystone Spirit World bestselling author, international psychic medium, and she has been working for 30 plus years, in the spiritual health and wellness and helping individuals and specializing in working with empaths. She is also host to the Empowered Empath podcast and just released her new book, which I'm so excited to dive into because I just read it and I loved it. Empowered Empath, Navigating the 7 Stages of an Empath Awakening. I want to make sure I said that right. So, welcome, Jennifer. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to kick us off with just saying first that as we dive into this, what I really appreciate is how you look at being an empath as a spiritual gift, as an extension, this is my words, not yours, but as an extension of our psychic gifts. Because I don't know about you, but I've been doing this for a while myself. And honestly, I found it quite annoying. And I think there are other people out there who look at being an empath and almost want to shy away from it and say, not identify with it, because sometimes it's so portrayed as almost like just these people who are so overwhelmed and so weak and so overstimulated and they can't manage their life and their emotions are too much. And I feel like we've gotten away from the fact that this is such an incredible, beautiful psychic gift.
So that's been a lot of people's comment, actually, as they're excited about it being more explained, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
I think that people are or have misconstrued notions of what an empath is. And I do go the route of an empathy route, which is, I think, how people view other people with empathy. And they're not the same thing. They're entirely different. In fact, I've had empaths tell me when I'm like, you're an empath, and they were like, really? Because I didn't think I could be. I thought I had to be more sensitive or to other people's feelings and be more caring. And I'm like, well, that's empathy. That's just being an empath. Empaths can actually be more guarded, which that's a whole nother subject. But that is a pet peeve of mine as well. People don't understand what an empath is. They're very stereotyped, and they don't understand the spiritual sense aspect, because it's actually a clair. Everybody knows about clairaudience, clairvoyance, and all that, but they didn't realize what's one of them. It's a clairsentience. So it's this ability where you're working with your spiritual body and spiritual senses. So yeah, we veered really far away from that somehow with all the media and all the things that are out there. into the negative, I think, aspect of the weakness or the things that you were talking about.
Yeah. I think in the book, one of the things you said that I really, I liked the wording and it helped me to look at it in a certain way. And just, you said that we are wired, right?
Mhm.
That we are wired to receive energy differently. And I don't know if you can kind of clarify that, but that really stuck out to me. So you could put it in your words, but that is one of the differences when you talk about it,
Right. Yes. When you are an empath, when you're born, like you were talking about, you are wired differently. And so how I explain that to people is everybody runs energy through their spiritual body. That's how we live. That's how we exist. People understand that concept when you're born, then into the physical body, that energy still has to connect and move through the body. The difference with empaths and why we have to live our lives differently is you want to imagine that most people are wired for like a 110 outlet of energy, just like electricity in your house. And we're wired for like a 220. So the amount of energy and our energetic conduit of the amount of energy that can move through the body and that we can read and feel is many times double what other people can read or feel. And that is within our energetic system that we have with us through every lifetime. So it's not a this lifetime thing. It's this is how we were created. This is how we were made. And then when we come down and we're incarnated, then when we're in our physical body then responds differently because other people are wired differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that actually speaks, I don't want to be jumping us all over the place, but that also speaks to how you discussed that we were chosen.
Right. Yes. So people ask me about this often because I think a lot of people wonder why they're an empath. Like, why am I having this gift? Because an empath gift is one of the absolute hardest gifts to manage. So everybody wants to be psychic, they want to be medium, they want to be all these things. But an empath is like the one that you can't control as well as you can with clairvoyance, clairaudience. And so it kind of wreaks havoc within your life. And because of that, we need to understand, why is it that we would have this gift? What's it good for? People understand, like I said, what the psychic stuff's good for, future, mediumship stuff. Why is that good? Well, that's good because you can connect with the spirit realm and explain things and deliver messages. But why be an empath? Well, we were chosen to help move energy. And with that comes the healing abilities that people have. And that's adjusting people's frequency, helping to raise people's frequency, understanding if they have a low frequency. So we have this innate ability to tune into their energy and know if they're being on the healthier side, the not healthier side, when it's focused. When we understand what the ability is for, if we want to use it to be a healer, because there's going to be, let's clarify, a lot of empaths that are like, that is not my thing. I don't want to feel, I don't want to work with energy work, that sort of thing. That's fine. You don't have to do that in this lifetime. It's just the way that you are wired. So in some of your lifetime, that's what you're going to do. But that also then snowballs into the fact of why people are drawn to empaths, because they can feel that we can move energy. And so when they come around us, they tend to feel better because we naturally, without realizing it sometimes, we raise people's vibration. And so with that natural ability that we have as a person that can move energy different than other people, the reason we can do it is because we are built with this ability to help heal and move frequencies and energies. Then they feel different around us. So they start to gravitate towards us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really do appreciate that part too, where you're saying that there are a lot of empaths that choose not to identify with an empath and go the route of like spiritual work per se, maybe.
Yes.
But I also feel like that's maybe why we can also say there are healers everywhere, and you could go to the bank and receive a healing from a healer as you stand in line at the grocery store and feel like you just had a huge healing experience.
Right, which I get into in the book because there are many different aspects of healing, just like you said.
Yeah.
You can have the most kind, loving mother. She can be a healer. She might heal through food. You know what I mean? We always think traditional routes of doctors or even, massage people, Reiki people, any of those avenues.
Right.
The healing can be done in so many different ways. It's just astronomical. So you don't have to choose a traditional or non-traditional healing route. You might heal through art. You might heal through music,
Yeah. And so for empaths that start to recognize, okay, that's kind of me, but I don't want to be, standing over a table and waving my arms around trying to heal somebody, right? That they're on.
Yes, my kids are very strong empaths. My son's like, yeah, not my thing. I'm going to go do other things. So, and you have to respect that. But like I said, there's so many different avenues when you're dealing with frequency and the way that you're healing somebody. Let's get into the definition of a healer for a moment. The definition of a healer is to leave them basically feeling better than they did before that they came to you. And the way that we typically do that as healers when we're in the energetic realm is we unknot their energy. We allow a different way for their energy to flow. We look for blockages. We help to move the energy through the body because the body, whether it be the spiritual body or the physical body, it is built to heal itself. It doesn't really need much told to how to heal. What it needs is for us to stop resisting the healing. And so through our words, our verbiage, touch, things of that nature, we help the resistance come down, or through things like we would do, me and you, with verbiage and things of that nature. It helps to reset the mind, helps to let those things the resistance come down. Now we're not restricting energy flow anymore. We're allowing a proper energy flow. Yeah. So we cause ourselves the most problems. The body and the spiritual and physical is meant and built to heal itself. We're kind of the wrench, if that makes sense.
Right. So, yes. And so I love that, how you just sort of worded that in terms of the healer, just being someone who actually energetically comes in and shifts and changes your vibration in a way that resistance starts to come down. And oh my gosh, your heart opens up. And I have a joke in my Reiki classes where I always tell this one story of this beautiful person who was in class one year, and she got an attunement and she came in after, for the next class, and she went on to share how she fell in love with her toothbrush. She went to go brush her teeth and she thought, oh my gosh, what an amazing thing that I have here. I get to have this. And she just had this beautiful heart experience with the toothbrush. And I think that just speaks to what you're saying is when you get those openings, when energy gets shifted, as us empaths can come in and even just doing nothing, no attunement, anything like that, but just holding space for somebody. It's sort of the energetic exchange is what you're saying, right? And so,
right. Yeah. There's many different avenues. People just technically or typically go to the traditional or the alternative type healing avenues.
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. And I think it's really powerful for empaths to really get to know that. Not a lot of people really understand that.
Well, the whole reason behind understanding you're an empath, how that affects your physical body, because that's the thing that really trips people up. They start not feeling so well. When you're moving energy and you don't know how to do energetic maintenance, you don't realize what that's doing to your physical body. And so a lot of that stems from your spiritual body, but you can feel it physically. And everybody just thinks, well, there's something wrong with me. I don't feel good. I'm very drained, or I'm feeling very heightened, anxious, that sort of thing. And so they just assume that something's wrong with them. And so they go to the doctor and they have all these testing done that is clear and you're fine and all that. And you're like, I do not feel fine. So nothing's matching. Well, they're not trained, as you know, to work with the spiritual body. That's not what they do. They don't really study that aspect in medical school. So to them, the physical body looks fine. So it's really important to understand you're an empath because you can understand more about your spiritual body, learn what it feels like, learn that some of your physical sensations are actually stemming from a spiritual body situation with moving energy or not having enough energy, that sort of thing. Then you start to put two and two together and you're not running to the doctor all the time, which doctors are great and they're wonderful and you totally should do that. But when you're getting a clean bill of health and they don't know what to do, that feels very frustrating. So then you learn what causes these issues. Why do I feel drained? Why do I feel anxious? How do I manage this? How do I learn more about my spiritual body? It's just really educating yourself. And when you educate yourself, then you can change a lot of things in your life to help you feel better and just stronger and more normal, because we cannot do the same things everybody else is doing. That's just not going to work for you. And that part was really frustrating for me when I learned that when I was really young. You want to be able to go do the things that other people do. You want to be able to go to that concert. You want to be able to be at the Christmas party with all the people. And sometimes as an empath, that's just not going to work for you depending upon the social environment. And so when you understand why, you can do things prior and after and during that can allow you to do more normal things. And then you feel more empowered, you feel stronger, your body feels better. There's whole systems for this, which is actually going to be in my book too, to help you just navigate through life feeling healthier and stronger. But we're not taught this information. And this is essentially why I wrote the book.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such an important information. And so you kind of tapped into a little bit around health issues that in there and how we experience the whole stuff in the body and when we dysregulate or whatever for our energy. And so I had my own health crises more than once. And I think a lot of empaths do struggle with health stuff. And I was going to bring this in later when we talk about, some of the phases of awakening, but it's almost like there needs to be a crisis, right? And would you say that the health crisis opens them up to their energies in new ways? Do you feel like there's an up level there when you come out of a health crisis?
To understand the question fully, I think that some people definitely discover they're an empath during a health crisis. I think that they have signs and signals of it prior to it being a health crisis. I think that they're very aware typically that they're not normal. Yeah. But what we are sort of trained to do and what our humanistic brain does is, well, you can handle it, you can handle it, you can handle it till you can't handle it anymore. And the body says, yeah, no, we're cutting you off. This is where it stopped because you're not listening to me. And so that's when we have to then backtrack. So there's usually typically signs prior to that, but we are really famously, we have it down to a science, ignoring our body, ignoring where our stoppable is.
Yeah. Like, I think you even mentioned something like that in your book, but one of which was that during this time, like, or any time, that empaths tend to be a little bit more perfectionistic, right? Do we talk about that in the book, right? And there's like this sense of like they have a connection in a way to understand there's more, and right, that there's an understanding
So when you start to heal your spiritual body, you start to feel more of a purpose. You start to feel a lot of the energy out there. You start to realize the world isn't working the same way that your physical senses are telling you. Your hearing, your sight, that sort of thing. And so you start to crave wanting to know more of these aspects, but it doesn't make sense to your brain because you haven't been taught this in school. You can't really see it. You can't really understand it. So it's very, very confusing. And we do things differently. We like the flow of energy. And so you might organize things more. Clutter might be a problem for you.
Yeah.
It's just you handle things. You handle things different when people are experiencing negative emotions because you want empaths need their space to feel comfortable. They need it to feel calm. They need to have energy moving. And if we have clutter, if we have negativity, we have some blocks and some energy ping-ponging off a lot of stuff. We start to get really frustrated and agitated, and we may or may not know why. And so then your brain goes, okay, why am I feeling agitated? And it starts looking for a reason. Because the other thing that people don't realize, they think the brain is so incredibly smart, which it is, but it's like a computer. It's taught to compartmentalize. It's taught to take the information you feed it and then navigate that information to give you more information. It's not taught to discover things on its own so well. People do that well, other people don't do that well. So if we do not give our brain information, like say the stuff that's in the book, and then we learn about why we do certain things or how energy moves, that allows the brain to then help you be a healthier empath because it can help you navigate through experiences, situations, and understanding if your health isn't the greatest, we can now navigate to that knowledge. But it just doesn't know that, like just coming out of the gate. It can compartmentalizer.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we need to get the expansion of information.
Well, you need the knowledge. You need the knowledge for your brain to sort through. If you don't have the knowledge for it to sort through, it's going to go to past experiences and things that it thinks it's coming from. So like anxiety, for
Anxiety. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
it's going to go back to past experiences and pinpoint it on a situation or a person or something of that nature, because that's what the brain thinks is happening. It's not going to say, oh, you're feeling this abundance of energy, or this energy is feeling unsettled or overwhelming amount of it. And because it doesn't have the knowledge to go, oh, we're dealing with an energetic issue here. It goes, no, we're dealing with this person or this place.
Yeah. Oh, I love that differentiation. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, just thinking, my brain went in different places as you were talking. And so I was hearing, okay, so somebody is really struggling with clutter and they live with a partner or a family that clutters. Or perhaps their partner has absolutely no problem with clutter. They absolutely love clutter. Right. And so the empath is just like, oh my God. Right. And he doesn't care about me. He doesn't, right. Versus being able to go in and say, okay, what's mine here? And what can I really, look at my energy and what I'm feeling right now as good information and to teach me how to.
Well, the other aspect of that is when you know yourself well enough, you don't go into the house and go, oh my gosh, you guys made this place a mess. What is happening? And then you get upset and they're like, oh, mom's mad again. You don't do that. You learn to communicate with your relationships. So you learn to communicate with your partners or maybe your children, saying that you don't like the way that the energy feels and you're a lot calmer when things are clean or surfaces are clean or things are put away. It's very important to teach your children and your significant others, especially if you're an empath, why that maybe you need your spaces to be cleaner, or why that you get edgy if there's certain negativity in the room or a certain person, maybe that everybody knows in the family, maybe that person puts you on edge. If you can explain to them, but a lot of people don't know themselves, again, why I wrote the book, but if you can say, hey, it makes me feel very, very edgy and uncomfortable because I need the energy to feel clean. We use that verbiage in my house. We've used that in my house forever. And even the grandbabies that are 7, they understand this because I want them to grow up learning about energy. And it's just a normal conversation in my house. But also it stops the fighting, If you're getting mad because your spouse keeps doing something that's against your energy flow, right? They need to know why, because otherwise it's not making sense to them. So it can actually help a lot of your interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. So once you get the knowledge of yourself, it's actually the message here is it's really important to communicate it and to share it with other people.
Absolutely. The more people you share it with, the more they understand, and it stops tension, because otherwise people just think you're being overzealous, an over organizer. They just are perfectionists. They like things a certain way. And I noticed that, and I'll eventually write something on this, but empaths in relationships have a really hard time, which I didn't put a lot of this in this particular book, but they forget that their partner's not sensing a lot of the things that they're sensing. And so they're doing what you said. They're assuming that it's, they're feeling what I'm feeling, or if a partner's really mad about something, then they take it on and then it starts to become their thing. And so it can cause a lot of issues as far as that goes. So once you start talking to your partner about being an empath and how you receive things, or you just know yourself, self-awareness enough to where you can go, okay, I know you didn't mean it that way, but give me a second just so I can reframe everything so I'm not taking this all personal. Then we can be more communicative and have healthier relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes when I see for some empathic or some empaths that are women, not always women, it could be either, but they have a partner that is a little burnt out because if they haven't managed their empath, they didn't have the knowledge through, let's say, the first half of their marriage, that they will kind of find themselves like, doing all the things we've already discussed, like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. Or I can't really get people to do the things I need them to do because I feel very overwhelmed by the environment. And so then having that conversation, like, well, this is why there are certainly times where partners don't quite understand or fully respect or, they don't understand, they're almost burnt out and they're a little lack of being open to it, like.
Right. Yeah. So educating you and your partner can be extremely helpful, but it can calm an empath down, just understanding more about why they're feeling that way. When you get frustrated, when you get agitated, when you're not feeling well, you have techniques and a place to go. When you learn about your gift, you backtrack and go, what was I doing that led me to here? But you don't backtrack in, what was my last experience that felt the same? You backtrack into, okay, who was I around? What was the energy like? How much have I been taking care of myself? Because that's where empaths really, really fail miserably, is the self-care aspect. It's a double-edged sword because our ability is to heal. And so we want everybody else in our life to feel better so that we feel calmer on the inside. Yeah. But we forget the aspect of the energetic maintenance. And what that means is we have an energy reserve. We're not just a conduit. So we don't just move energy through the body. There's a reserve. So I explain it to people like, imagine it like your cell phone battery. You cannot run your battery dead every day and then just go, why do I feel terrible or icky or I'm cranky? You have to keep your battery properly filled, and especially because people will draw upon that throughout the day. So if you don't learn those energy management techniques and you don't learn how to strengthen that reserve, you're going to be a hot mess. And so that's another thing that we really need to pay attention of. And typically that will come in what people think is self-care. And self-care is one of those other negative, isn't that interesting? The negative terms, like being an empath seems to have a negative notation to it, or self-care. It's really strange. So anyways, you have to do things to keep your energy on the higher side. You have to exercise. You have to be mindful of what you're eating. You have to be out in nature a certain amount of time. And again, that's where I get into book 2, where I start explaining there's reasons behind that. It's not just, oh, I'm going to go out and ground myself in the barefoot and, and touch the earth. That's all fine and well, but you need to understand why you're doing that. And when you understand there's an actual reason of the way the energy is moving through your body, it's circuiting through the earth and you're completing a circuit, and then the earth energy comes back in the body. Like, you really need to understand why that's important for an empath. So there's so many different aspects to it. And then we get into the empath labeling, which is a whole nother thing, which is my biggest pet peeve. So, there's just a lot that you need to learn to help you care for yourself, your energy. Then your body won't break down. And then it won't start, you won't have like the autoimmune diseases so much, or you won't have, like fibromyalgia as much. There are some very specific health things that a lot of empaths will tend to get over and over again. They're constantly giving that energy away, and the physical body doesn't work well with that. So
another framework that I sometimes talk about this is a lot of empath. They come in with these chronic illnesses, just like you said. And a couple things that I always notice is I call it untapped potential, but it's really a disalignment from your purpose, right? So there's always this untapped potential in them. they're not in alignment with what they're really, where they're supposed to be going next, right? They're not in alignment with whatever their soul growth seems to be. Secondly, the illness tends to serve a way to have unmet needs be seen, right? So usually that illness is making somebody who doesn't know how to take care of themselves, doesn't know how to do the self-care stuff, doesn't know how to do all those things, doesn't know how to speak up for themselves and ask for things, or right? Then they get sick and people have to take care of them, and they get sick and they have space and time from their career for a second, right? And they're finding ways to have these needs met that they don't otherwise know, right? And so,
Right.
and then looking at it from the energetic standpoint, what you just said, it's kind of a nice package deal to look at, like, these are some things that are really important to look at when you get a diagnosis of being sick as an empath. And if you know you're an empath and how important, like you're saying, it is to know, then you can get real intentional, like, oh, okay, right? I need to go sit next to a tree.
If you know you're an empath and you're diagnosed with an illness, then you really need to review what your life choices are. Seriously.
Yes.
This is like extremely important. So the doctor can only do so much. You're also responsible to make lifestyle changes. And if you know you're an empath and you're sick, the lifestyle you are currently living, I can say with certainty, is not conducive to the energetic flow of the body, the purpose of why you're here. It's just you are banging against your own frequency, and people don't realize that. They end up having this banging effect, which typically causes inflammation. It causes all kinds of autoimmune things, aches and pains and things of that nature. So you're responsible to go back and go, what's working for me, what's not. That's typically where I'm sure you get into as well. We hear a lot of excuses. I can't change, can't do this, can't do that. Well, I mean, at some point, something needs to be a priority. If you can't, and you're really set on that, when this is really the life you're going to live, that's just the way it is. But if you decide that you're the priority, and you need to be the priority because you're the hub of the family, the nucleus, of all things, your children depend on you, you depend on you, you want your quality of life to be decent, then we have to get rid of the words I can't. We have to really get rid. If I could get rid of words, those would be the words.
Yes.
And then we have
How can I?
How can I do this? How can I make a shift? Because your body is then screaming at you. See, I look at illness entirely different. I actually will be writing a huge book on spiritual health that people are just begging me to put out as soon as possible. And, once your body starts breaking down, your body talks to you. It's telling you something. That's where stopping points are happening. If we get to a chronic illness, you ignored stopping points way early on, and hit a wall, and you just said, no, we'll power through. No, I can still do this. No, I can, as long as I commit, I can do this. And they just bulldoze through like a semi truck, and then their body's like, okay, now, well, we're going to put a concrete wall then. So it's really interesting how people view health. It really is, because doctors can't help you with the root of the problem. So even if you go in and they say, okay, I can give you these things, which are extremely helpful, and we can solve some of the symptoms, you don't want to repeat it. That's like clipping a weed and letting the root stay there, and then the weed's going to grow back, in a year or two, like it's back again. And so that stuff stems within the spiritual body and the emotional body. And we don't realize how much that affects the physical body because we haven't been trained. So that's, again, why I'm on this writing mission, to really explain to everybody how that works.
Yeah, well, we're happy you're on the writing mission.
Yeah.
So can we tap into, could you talk a little bit about how there are sort of these stages of awakening? Could we I know that, I saw these stages, and I know that we could have a podcast episode on each one. So maybe we could talk about the fact that there are stages, what they kind of mean, and maybe we can even dabble on the first one or something, because I'm sure people have hit that.
Yeah, so I have them here that I'm going to just read really quickly, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We have 7 stages, first we start with the crisis stage. Well, and I call them spiritual crisis, spiritual depression, spiritual purpose, spiritual awareness, spiritual sponge, spiritual release, and then the spiritual clearing and development. So yes, there are stages. And like what you were kind of saying is when we're in the first spiritual crisis stage would be the part where you start having, like, you feel like my life isn't going the way I want it. You might feel traumatized in a sense. There's a catalyst, something that has made you start feeling like, what is happening with my life? I'm not happy with this. Or it could also be you might have had to switch jobs. Maybe there was an ending to a relationship. It could be anything that happened in your life. Then you typically move on to what's called the spiritual depression stage, because there's also aspects of yourself where you're like, why was my life going okay? It was going really good. And now it feels like it's off track. And we can have that even happen without a catalyst. We can end up going into a spiritual depression stage, even if our whole life has been this long for the last 5 to 10 years. And then all of a sudden you're like, why am I unhappy here? Why am I unhappy in the relationship? Why am I unhappy with life? I was fine like a week ago. And then it just continues on. And the reason that this happens is because when you start getting into an empath awakening, that is when you start tuning into your spiritual body. You start to feel it again. So you feel it just tiny, tiny little bit. And the more that you pay attention to that feeling, the more that this part of yourself starts to become more dominant. It starts to grow. You start to have a more dominant relationship with your spiritual body. And that's where the awakening process happens, because we're primarily physical dominant. We're primarily physical body dominant. And so it keeps that spiritual aspect of ourself kind of quieter. But what we need in our life, we need balance. We need both. We need them to be working together. They're built to work together, but we usually choose a dominant side. And so if you've made choices based on physical dominance, then you will have chosen your job that way, your lifestyle that way. You've made a lot of choices that has fed the physicalness of who you are. When your spiritual body starts to be like, hey, remember me? I'm here. And it starts to grow in its frequency. It starts to get stronger. So you can now hear it through all your physical being. Then you go, wait a minute, this isn't as satisfying anymore. I'm not sure what's happening here. And then you start to feel kind of depressed sometimes, because you're like, I worked really hard to get here and build this beautiful family, or make it to this spot in the career. Why am I unfulfilled? Well, because you made physical choices, not spiritual choices. And that's where your purpose lies. That's where self-fulfillment, all that lies. So then you start becoming aware. Wait a minute. What is happening? Why, and then you want to go down the rabbit hole of, I need to know more about this, So it's like this domino effect of recognizing that you've lived your life from a physically based mindset for most of your life. Then having your spiritual body go, there's more to life, and you have more to give and more to experience. And then going, oh, there's more than this. How do I get there? And how do I be more in tune with that part of who I am? And then we start going to a spiritual sponge stage where we just start consuming all this information as best we can. Meanwhile, that spiritual body is becoming more dominant. So now we're getting more of a balance. And then you start getting clarity. It's hard to get clarity on changing our life and purpose if you're physically dominant. If your physical body dominant, you will feel like foggy in the spiritual realm. You will feel disconnected in the spiritual realm. So those are when people are like, my guides are not listening to me. I mean, God's not answering my prayers, because they feel very disconnected and they can't hear the messages as they would want to hear the messages.
What's interesting is what I'm thinking when you're saying to this makes so much sense. So I also feel like when we get in our bodies, that's when we can really start to open up our intuition, our guides, right? And so it's like this physical dominance is almost like also brain dominance, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
It is brain dominance. And that's a very good point. Because, and that's another thing, it's weird how people just assume that how smart they are, who they are, and all that is all in this physical body, in the brain, and the perspective of the brain, and all of the physicalness. It's what you really desire in life, why you're here, your purpose. People always ask me, what's my purpose? Why am I here? That information is in the spiritual body. It's what came down with you, because you still were very own characteristics. You still have a wealth of knowledge of skills that you haven't even tapped into yet from other lifetimes. This is all a part of who you are. And as a whole, when you are born, then we forget so much of that. We have that, what I call spiritual amnesia. And as children, however, they tend to remember it quite well, way better than any adult you'll ever meet in your life. And then as we grow up, we get it trained out of us. Oh, you don't know that. How could you have that skill? Why would you be interested in that? That doesn't make any money. You can't live your life by doing this skill, And so we are very much judged and molded into this physically based world and mindset that is so disconnected from our spiritual purpose and what we are meant to achieve, and what we do when we come down here, what we're supposed to do, that it is mind-boggling. And then we cloud everything up. We lose touch with the spiritual body. Everything, the messages don't seem as clear. A lot of people that come to me, they're just very concerned. I can't receive a message. I can't hear this. And I'm just like, oh yes, you just give me 5 minutes. I can get you.
So what is your magic, right? So everybody's wondering, well, how do I do that? How do I get out of my physical, body living and
well, first of all, it's education. Like I said, hence writing the book, it's educating yourself. It's simply understanding that your physical body is not going to be alive without your spiritual body, and the essence of who you are is in that spiritual body. So it's just kind of reframing it simply, which everybody knows anatomy, and they know that if somebody passes, that their spirit's not in there and their body's still there. So they understand that, but for some reason they don't put the 2 and 2 together. And so once you start really going, okay, I need to know more then. I need to know more about how to work the 2 bodies together. I need to know more about what do I need to work with more with my spiritual body? Like what jobs do I have there? How do I connect with that? And then we start utilizing our spiritual senses more. We start paying more attention to our intuition. We start paying more attention to the voice in our head, because here's another thing that's kind of funny. Everybody assumes that voice in their head is them. So interesting to me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I go ahead, because I this is so true.
Yeah. So people who are not in my line of work don't realize that their spiritual telepathy is a very real thing. In fact, that's how you communicate in the spirit world. That's normal. Energy is the first language. It is the universal language. It's the language in the spirit realm. It's the language when you're babies. People just assume that babies are kind of responding to verbiage, which I find just fascinating. They're responding to energy. They are so responding to the vibe you're giving out, because energy is the universe's language. And so when you're in the spirit realm, there's a lot of telepathy going on, because when energy is moved, it holds information. And so that's what telepathy is. You receive the energy, you receive the information. It's in the energy. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean anything. You can't see what your computer does on the back end either, usually. Right. So, you receive this information. So a lot of people assume it's their thoughts, that's their subconscious. And I'm like, I can tell you 25% of what goes through your head is your thoughts. And even if we get into negativity, that can also be a type of spiritual telepathy. And if you're holding a negative frequency, like attracts like, and so you will draw in negative people or people that match the frequency on a physical level. But you will also draw in spiritual frequencies that also match. And they will want to amplify that, just like other negative people will want to be like, yeah, wow, that was horrible. I can't believe that happened to you. Yeah, you should be real mad about that. The same way that people do that, spirits can do that as well. And so the way that I tell people, how do you differentiate? Well, if your thoughts came with a trail or a train of thoughts, I was at the grocery store, I seen this shirt, that shirt reminded me that I was needed to pick up something from the dry cleaner. I don't want to go there. The traffic is going to be too bad. That's a train of thought, you know? But if you're at not doing anything, we're just checking out and you're like, oh, I wonder if someone's cooking dinner. I wonder if I should call them before I go home. That's not you. You know, there was no train of thought there. It's just, they pop into your head. Now you might start going on a loop with whatever popped into your head. But 25% of the things that are doing things up here is your own. You can claim those.
I love that. I love that. Because I love the number 25%, because it just shows us how ginormous for those people that are like, I can't receive.
Give me 5 minutes. I can help you connect in real quick. I had somebody that was like, no, I can't. And he argued, it was a student of mine. And he was like, yeah, I just know I can't. And I'm like, no, I'm not even kidding you. Like, give me 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And by the end of the call, he was like, wow, that was crazy. So there were so many things he was ignoring. But of course, that's my wheelhouse, wasn't his wheelhouse. So there we go.
A lot of times I'll have people, like, if we do a class or something, if I do a class, something, I'll have people say, okay, for like the next week, your homework is to believe that absolutely everything is something. Mm-hmm. Everything. And now if that could possibly be true, you know, we'll say 25% is you, but if you could just pretend like everything is something and follow it, as if every single thing that comes to your head, everything that steps in your path, every thought, you know, everything is something.
Yeah, that's
what would happen? And they come back and they're like, oh my God. Like, oh my God, I got answers. I made these decisions that I wouldn't normally make. I did all these things and, you know.
Well, and that's another thing. People get really frustrated. They'll say, okay, well, I've been asking or trying to manifest whatever, this, that, or the other thing, and nobody's listening. It's not happening. Well, that's, again, not how the universe works. That's us trying to micromanage an outcome. And so,
yes,
we're trying to micromanage the universe. You're not going to get much done. Mm-hmm. And so you have to reverse, again, that physical-based mindset. What everybody truly wants in life is they really want freedom. They want love, and they want joy. These are the three things. They want the freedom to do things that they are joyful about, and they want love in their life. So I don't know why that we're programmed this way when we're born, but we all think that we go, okay, I know what brings me joy, so I need this to happen in this way. And you know what I mean? Yes. It doesn't work like that at all.
No, we're really pigeonholing ourselves into thinking I have to have this.
Yeah.
We exclude everything else that's possible.
It blows my mind as the universe is so much smarter than we are. Right. And the energy is so vast that if you allow the micromanaging to disappear and you go, you know what, though, I'm not in love with my job because I feel like it restricts my time with my children, and that time's going to go. I want more time. If we do it that way, we're opening up to such a vast amount of possibilities. It's insane. And the thing about empaths is they are some of the most powerful manifestors you will ever come across, because we have an ability to manipulate, move, and receive energy. Our relationship with energy is so strong that our ability to manifest is off the charts. And so if we stop micromanaging, which is what empaths love to do, we love to control our environment where we think that we need everything to be calm. We do not like sitting in uncomfortable energy. But before I get into that, we need to sit in uncomfortable energy sometimes, because that's where transition and change is.
Exactly.
And that's when the universe gives us things. But if we don't go, I just need more freedom. I love my kids' time's going fast. I need a job that, maybe the hours are more suiting. And we leave it at that. And we go, I want this job with these hours, or I want to work these exact time frames on these exact days. Now we're cutting the blood flow off to the universe. We're restricting everything again. And it's like, and why didn't I get this? Well, because you really made a lot of details that, and a lot of restrictions. And then you were filled by that emotional feeling of restriction. And that's where, again, managing your empath ability comes in differently is the way we move energy is through our emotional body. That's how we navigate it. So we push energy and we resist energy in the emotional body. So people want to move energy all the time with their head, their brain, their guidance system up here, their third eye, whatever. But when we say sit in a session or do, I assume, Reiki or whatever, when you sit down and you have the intention of moving energy on somebody or yourself, your resistance is down because that's your intention. You just really focus on moving the energy. But when we're living in our everyday lives, we resist because we get in our head and we start going, I can't. Well, when you have resistance in your emotional body, or you feel like something might not happen, you are slowing or stopping the flow of energy. When you are feeling like your person that we were talking about with the toothbrush, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. Now your heart chakra opens up, but our ability to move energy is really strong. It navigates and it moves so freely and so strongly when we have positive frequency going on. When we are feeling love, joy, appreciation, gratitude, any of those things. That's why people talk about that with manifesting all the time. It's because that's when we have a lot more control of manipulating energy. So we have control by letting go of control. So you let go of control and you just desire. Those are the two things. You let go and you desire.
This is like really solid advice. I mean, this is like really important to navigate life. If you're going to look at, okay, what's my spiritual work? What's my checklist right now, right? Part of it really is part of this is like almost a letting go and trusting, but also, desiring and wanting.
Yes.
But with how learn to let go, as you say, the micromanaging. And I think that so nails it. Like that is so hard for us to do. It's to stop
And the word desire encompasses that. It encompasses a positivity of wanting, not like the negative aspects of wanting. It's like, I desire this. That feels good,
Yeah.
And so letting go and desiring. And if you can let go and desire, you can design your life in such a beautiful manner and experience things that you never, ever would have thought you would be experiencing. It is quite powerful. As empaths, we have such an ability to live the most amazing quality life, spiritually and physically. And we just haven't been taught how to do that. So, but it's there. Every single empath that's listening, every empath that we come across, me and you, you never don't have it. You just need to possibly learn or relearn how to work with it instead of against it. We can't live physically based and be an empowered empath. There has to be a spiritual balance there.
Well, that is beautiful and so very, very, very true. And I know everybody who's listening is going to feel that vibrationally because everybody's going to think to themselves, I hope you're thinking to yourself if you're listening, okay, now I know what to do. And now I need to go get your book. So as we wrap it up, let's talk about how people can either learn from you or work with you. I want to highlight that all this good stuff we're about to talk about will be in the show notes. Your book, again, is The Empowered Empath, Navigating the 7 Stages of an Empath Awakening. And then you also have classes.
Yeah, so you can find me threefold. One is on Amazon. This isn't the first book I've written. I have several. And the second Empowered Empath book will be coming out December 31st. So then we get into like techniques and things of that nature. So you can find me on Amazon, and then my website, Keys to the Spirit World. That's where everything you can navigate from. But I do a lot of classes at Empath University. And so that's where I do a lot of teaching. I do live spiritual coaching. I do certifications. I do retreats, all kinds of things. So you can find that at Empath University, but everything is, the hub is keys to the spirit world.com. And that's where you can find all the things I do.
Cool. I will make sure that all of that is listed and clear for people to find you. And thank you so much again, Jennifer, for coming on the show. This was such an amazing conversation. We really could talk for like 3 more hours. So I appreciate it. And I just feel like you've shared such gold here today for us to kind of start to make some shifts that are possible, and no matter what stage you're in and developing as that path. I think this book will speak to you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Into the Work Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. Don't forget to grab your free gift, your Shadow Work Transformation Bundle at michellepoverman.com. I've included everything you need to get started to break through the patterns of self-sabotage and finally start to heal the parts of yourself that are getting in the way of truly reaching your potential. From a powerful meditation designed to help you meet and embrace your shadow self, to the guide that's full of curated prompts and important questions to support you on this journey. This really can be the work for you to unmask the root cause of all the issues you've been experiencing, honestly, and start to feel free to believe in yourself and go for what you want. The link for this free bundle is in the show notes. And if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you could take a moment and rate, click and follow, and leave a review. Of course, you can always follow me on socials at Michelle Poverman. And keep in mind, as you embark on your journey from spark to brilliance, remember, the universe is always conspiring in favor of your awakening. Everything that's happening is in support of you lighting your own fire within. So until we meet again, may your path be well lit and your heart be guided. Shine bright, seekers. Until next time.